Hey, everybody, this is Heather Lockett with Lasting Conversations, and we are continuing conversations on the road this summer, 2023. And today we have none other than Anne O'Boyle Vlahos. And Anne lives in Vermont, who just got flooded out a little bit or a lot of bit. So how's that going, Anne? And welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. And thanks so much for having me on Lasting Conversations. We've had many of those. It's kind of fun to do one like this together.
That's right.
So Vermont is having some really key issues. I've been blessed enough to be out of the way of the storm this time. So, just asking for a lot of prayers. And as the state recovers, it's pretty serious.
It is very serious. And I think there are some more states kind of in the eye of this. And so to everybody kind of in the eye of some storms, we wish everybody well, which actually circles into how this conversation today literally popped up. It popped up as very impromptu. I knew I was going to have a guest. I just didn't know organically who yet. And then I thought of Anne's mugs. So we will get to that in one quick second. So Anne is the author of a fabulous book called To Die For, The Gifts of Being Present Through Loss and Grief. She's the creator of these mindfulness mugs that, again, we will get to in a second. She is a mom, she is a grandmother, and she is a corporate whirlwind. She is absolutely on top of her game at all moments. And within all of this construct, Anne has this absolute ability to stay calm, even through the shit shows, even through the stuff that comes at us. And this is why this popped in today into my awareness to reach out to Anne. And of course, with all stars aligning, she was available, and here we are. So first of all, welcome again, Anne. And let's start with those mugs because they're here on this planet. And I know you're developing them not to repurpose, but to put them back out into the universe because they just warm our hearts. And it's meant as a moment of calm and clarity. So take it away and just tell us about your mugs.
Absolutely. So I'll just talk a little bit about the idea and the design and where things came from. When I wrote the book To Die For, it was really just about my experiences through the loss of my mom and my dad. And so if anybody's lost anyone or anything that they love, you know how much that can throw you off balance. And so the second part of that title is, the gifts of being present, ... And when we talk about loss and grief, we're talking about the storm today, right? There's a lot of loss there, right? And grief comes as a result of many things. It's not just about the loss of a loved one. It could be a loss of a property, loss of a job, loss of a relationship, loss of a pet, right? So loss goes a broad way, and being calm, entering into that is so important. And one of the things that really kind of helped me through this process was focusing on breathing. I mean, you and I have gone through some really amazing courses with Panache, where it's all about the breath, right? And so I was like, wow, that's really cool. How do we help people focus and center? And so I worked with a local potter here, and I'm going to be starting to work with several, but this is the mug. And so you look at that and say, okay, that's a beautiful mug. It's a very centering color, right? Okay, that's fine. But what about it, right? So the first thing is this is the seed of life, right? So this is sacred geometry, and sacred geometry is so special because as you interact with it, you gain the energy of it. And I don't know if you ever noticed, but I'm personally one of those people that if there's something to keep my hands busy during a conversation, I'm on it. And so this one, I find myself interacting with it on a regular basis, right? My hands.
So this is a pottery, coffee, chocolate, any kind of something warm or cool even to hold in your hand.
Right now.
Yeah, it's made so beautifully. And so this is for the audio folks that aren't visibly looking yet. But as you're describing it, the energy is coming through very beautifully. It's a tactile mug that, as you said, we all like a little fidget sometimes with our hands. And this mug does that.
Right. And so referring back to the breath, which is something that's different than the sacred geometry, which I just thought was a nice added touch to it, is I'm not quite sure if you can see here, but there are 3 bumps on this mug and then a line. What does that mean? Well, at first, it was, for me, it was take 3 deep breaths. And so as you do that, you think about, I mean, we can do this together right now, right? When you take your first breath, you take it in deep and you let your stomach expand and you let it out with sound. The second one comes in and it goes in a little bit more deeper. You can feel the calm coming in. And now the third one. And so those 3 buttons remind us of those 3 breaths, each one deepening in intensity, and the line, letting it out with sound, just letting that pressure, that stress, that tension, that thought, whatever it is, giving it out and extending it. Another thing for it too is sometimes we get so freaking caught up in everything that we're doing, we forget to be grateful. Right. And so me personally, I don't get out of bed in the morning until, no matter how much I want to run to the ladies' room, I don't get out of bed until I think of 10 things I'm grateful for. Somebody said 3. I figure, I'm a little bit of an overachiever. So
you are. You don't do anything small. Nothing
not
small.
Room for 10 bumps here. So we're going to stick with 3, right? We're going to go for everybody. Right? It's an easy number to remember. Yeah. So sometimes if you think of 3 things that you're grateful for, right, and then take that beautiful energy and send it to someone who might need it. And it could be, and these 3 things can be so little, right?
Send it to yourself first, because we get to receive those moments first.
Absolutely. And even in just being grateful for things that have happened to you is the gift of giving it back to yourself as well, right?
That's right. And then to send it to the universe and to gift it out. That's true.
Right. So, I went to a coffee shop and, they made a cute little heart with the foam on the latte, right? Okay. That's, thank you. Right. Okay. That's cute. That's sweet. But it's also like a heart, it reminds me of my heart. That was lovely. I'm grateful for that. It could be that simple as to, I'm not feeling well for the past few weeks. And then I wake up and I feel well. Or I've got a different discussion with a doctor going on, and they say, hey, the things may not look good, right? I'm not saying this. I'm saying this could be anybody. It's not me. Right. You get that, but you can be thankful that today you did open your eyes and you have another day to experience the beauty of this life, whatever it is and however it comes to you, messy, clean, perfect, not. It could be the sun that's shining. It could be the pet that's sleeping by the side of your bed. It could be the flowers that are on your kitchen. It doesn't have to be something big. It just has to make you stop and reflect a bit. And through that reflection is how you become present. And so I'm super committed to this and a bunch of other things that I feel are going to encourage people to slow down and be present and be heart-centered. So, I love the idea of mindfulness per se, but the more that I've thought about it, I think heartfulness is more important, right? We know there's heart coherence. We know that there's the energy of that. And so for me, peace, you can use your mind to drive you to your heart, and that's where the peace exists.
The peace is always in our heart for sure. And so of your mugs, do you have something special you're going to be putting in those mugs, or you have some cocos or other chocolates and things? It's part of an upcoming package, something that you tapped into a few years ago, and then life happens and Corona worlds happen and grandbabies come into the world. And, and so we start, and then it was time to kind of maybe reformulate and expand to do something else, but you still have your vision, and tell us more about this vision.
Yes. So initially, I really wanted to kind of come up, this idea was really focused more around the idea of grief. And my thought was that, when someone passes away, people are good with cards and good with flowers and good with food.
That's right. Yep.
And then you hit that 3-week mark. And for me, it was kind of when everybody else went back to their ways. And I felt like I was on a moving sidewalk, and the loss of my mother or the loss of my father was back there. And I was, unconditionally having to move forward, and it wasn't a comfortable place.
Right.
And what could I do to comfort myself? What could I do that would, help me achieve this and help me get over this? And so the idea came up with coming up with a line of gifts that last more than a moment.
Well, because when life brings us back to between me and me, right? And you've had weddings and things, there is also that moment. But in the course of a loss, in the course of a death, whatever that death is,
Mm-hmm.
and people are there for you or they're not, but things rush in and or helpers are there. And then we always come to that moment where they're gone and it's just between us. And so the whole notion of this gifting that you're thinking of that's tangible, that can last a long time. And it's meant to be joyful also. It's not a morbid thing. There's certain gifts that I can sort of say, well, that might be nice, but I don't know. It's a little bit, how do you move on? But yours is also very life affirming.
Yeah.
But going to what you're saying is things in those emergent moments are full of the hubbub, and then it just gets really quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where you're coming in with this.
Exactly. And, I think you're hitting on exactly that spot of saying, it doesn't have to be, when someone passes away, I think probably one of the things that I feel, where I feel like I want to offer prayers or hope or whatever to people is when they clock those times. It's been this, it's been a year, it's been 10 years.
Right.
And
it's a birthday or Christmas, or it's a marker.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're kind of anchoring yourself in what used to be versus anchoring yourself in the present. And I'm going to share something with you today that, above the piece that's needed because of, the things that are going on with storms and everything, the coincidence to this is uncanny. Today is the 10th anniversary of my father's passing.
Oh, come on. So
I'm smiling when I'm saying this, okay? And not because of anything other than if you only knew Heather and I, it could only be because of,
So this is where we introduced the Kamsu on the show.
Yeah.
CMTSU, Kamsu. You can't make this stuff up, or you can't make this shit up. That is some synchronicity. That's beautiful. Oh my God, that's hilarious, Anne.
Incredible, right? And so so for me, it is okay to allow that relationship to be there, but pulling it into the current isn't, I don't know, it isn't necessarily really, life affirming. I mean, it can be, but there's really subtle portions of that, of where it is. And so again, these ideas and this whole idea of this package is to say, like, I need some cozy little help here, to get myself through things. What am I going to do to make myself feel well? And so, the mug here is the goal of this is going to be that there's going to be some beautiful organic teas that come with it in case you want to have a tea, right? I'm working to try to find some beautiful organic mushroom coffees so they can be health affirming as well as kind of hitting that thing, but without, caffeine again. And then I have also worked with a company that does absolutely beautiful raw organic cocoa. So there, you can make this as every day as you want, or you can also make this a little bit ceremonial if you feel the need to pause and have that. And so I'll be, as a part of some of this, I'll also be writing up and showing how to do ceremonial hot cocoa ceremonies, or really preparing and doing tea in a very unique way that is very personal and meaningful for yourself. I also found, and I just have a love for candles, and the candle that's sitting behind me is also a part of the line. It's one of three that are going to be in the line, made of beeswax. The flowers that are on there are chosen for their flower essence energy, so that they're calming and heart affirming and peaceful. And so the idea sometimes is, you need a little light in your life, right? And so this could be at any time of darkness, right? When we shine a light on things. Sometimes we notice the darkness more, but then also too, it is a contrast to it, and we make a choice. And so the candles are also a part of this, this idea, and there'll be more. I'm working on a whole bunch of great ideas. You catch me on the very early end, but I'm really excited because I've been working with my husband, who's a designer, to get templates for everything going, because I'm really committed to taking this forward to the next level. I feel like now's the time for people where we really need to understand, come back to common peace.
That's exactly it. And that is, I know it's already going to be the title of this particular episode. And I know hopefully my next guest will be available to tap into this too, that their wheelhouse is on sound and healing vibrationally. But it feels like something is kind of it's been ramping up, but where these techniques, I don't want to say modalities, but there it is. But to know that these lifelines are available, and because of weather storms, political storms, we're in it. We're all in it in some form or another. And now is the time to find our buoy, right? To find our lifelines, and to enjoy and find the joy. That's why I love the mugs also, or a cup of tea, that it doesn't necessarily have to be, oh my God, I'm feeling horrible today, but maybe I am for a nanosecond, but that kind of piece of cozy, and it's also fun, and they're beautiful. They're just wonderful to hold on to, and that you have them made by beautiful potters. Are they in Vermont? Or you source them from amazing people. So the joy and the love just ripples and ripples and ripples.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yep, it's going to continue like that. And, I know we talked a little bit when we were together last time. I had done a course. Timmy was the one that first hosted me to do a course. And
Timmy O'Malley, who was actually, I think, my number 3 guest with her, her food, the consciousness, and meals around the world. Yeah, that was back in November. But yes.
Yeah, Timmy's great, and and super supportive, and she really understands the idea of heart coherence. And so when I put together a program that was called Healing Your Heart Through Grief and Loss, and so the book is almost like more of like a how to get through things, because no one tells you this stuff, and it's a pretty rough boat ride if it no matter what it is, it's going to be, but it can really it's something that really can threaten your peace and your center hourly. With respect to the course, it's like, okay, now that that's over, how do I get back? Because grief in itself, and again, I'm not going to say that grief is just from the loss of a loved one. Grief is a loss of a job, a loss of a home, a loss of a pet, a loss of a lifestyle. It could be a loss of a marriage. I mean, grief is so broad that we have to understand that when we're going through something like this, there's very important physical things that your body is going under. And in particular, if you don't start to handle it, it can really start some really incredibly bad disease cascades that you really want to get your hands around that and pull yourself back in, because you want to be here on the other side of this. And so it's really important to come up with things like this. And so the class really kind of walks through all that. And I offer this template of what I did as understanding of how to kind of make myself feel a little bit better with little things, things that I did even when I was in a really bad situation. I'm in a bad situation. How do I lighten myself up? But then also creating a template for yourself. And that's really the key goal of this class. And this is going to be something that I'm very excited to start to offer in person, but I'm also going to be doing it internet wise, and then really kind of having it out there for people, because this is something that if you have a little bit of a plan ahead of time, it's just sort of like going on vacation. We can go and we can wing it. And sometimes it gets really special. And sometimes it also gets really special, right? So,
I know.
Yes, exactly.
I might know that. Yeah. That was an episode or 2 ago, in terms of where that fine line of planning with the travel agent, planning versus winging it, and where I'm doing a little of both. And it's special on all of these different wavelengths, but this is where your book is so resonant. And, I've mentioned on the show, I've sold my house and I massively downsized. And I had a case of your books for when you were doing your little book tour before, that I just brought immediately over to the major hospice organization, and hopefully for their workers, because the magic of this book, which I know there are going to be addendums and add-ons and things as life keeps doing, is that it's a primer for not only, it's for everybody. No, everybody has someone that we're losing, but it's also for the folks in the industry, because it talks about what can happen within a hospital setting and what happens when someone can't speak anymore. And and then there's legal things and there's professional things. So the book itself is so rich with that word planning ahead. It's one of these books, had you known how ahead of time, this would be so helpful, right?
It is. And, and I've heard that from people involved in the making of the book, which has been really reassuring too. The woman who I did with my publisher, we started off by doing, the framework and doing some interviewing with each other. And there was transcription that happened. And the person that was doing transcription at a certain point stopped doing the transcription. I didn't know this, I don't know how long things take to do. And I'm waiting to get those notes back so that I can kind of continue on them with my phase of things. And when it comes, I'm grateful. I'm not thinking anything. And she said, well, Jess wanted to say sorry for the delay. And I was just like, didn't know there was delay. Just tell her thanks. I'm grateful that she got the work done. And it turned out that her mom had gotten a diagnosis during this process. And she said she literally couldn't hear me talking about death because it became then too close and near. Mm-hmm. And then when it kind of started getting a little bit sketchy, she was like, I got to plug in because I think I got to hear this, and she risked it and started listening more rather than doing the transcription, but just starting to listen more. And then when it was all said and done, she watched this beautiful energy as she moved present, how all these things kind of fell in place and kind of got a lot better. Her mother got through that episode, and that was awesome. But it was really reassuring to me that someone who, and by crazy coincidence, she's a medium, right? So then, so that was another really ironic thing that was happening, and that was kind of cool. And then another, one of my publishers, her dad recently was going through end of life phases, and at one point we were talking. She said, and how she told me was, I think I need to read your book now. And I was really grateful that is starting to happen, that people want to be a little bit proactive. It's a really scary subject, but there's so much richness in there about how to approach any kind of a loss in your life with taking those breaths and being present, how it actually, by not reacting right away, it opens up a world of possibilities, and they're not all bad. And if you contract and you don't breathe, 10 to 1, the only thing you're going to see is the negative stuff that you're allowing yourself to see.
Right. Right. So let's go here for a second, since you brought it up. There's one more piece of your book that you do tap into, which is kind of the spirit side. And being able to, that's a whole different kind of presence. And so talk to us a little bit about that. We don't, some of us maybe are mediums and we don't even know it. I think the people who are death doulas that really are there to help walk through during transition. That's really a whole nother topic, but talk to us about those nuggets of your book and experience.
Sure. So
because I'm bringing that up because I think it might be surprising to some people in terms of, I didn't realize, what am I really seeing here? Or even more important, what is possible is what gets into Anita Moorjani's work. This is possible. It's beautiful. I always just say the word brutal. It's a brutal time, especially for those being left behind, but how exquisitely beautiful also. It's a brutal moment in its exquisiteness.
Yeah. So book starts off with a story about how I learned that my mom was passing away. Right. And, I'm not so sure that I knew how intuitive I really was. So just all to you that don't know that about yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes you talk to yourself and you think it's your voice, and then other times you hear stuff and it maybe not be your own voice. And so this time, very clearly, I was driving in my car and I was getting lost around an area where my family was, and I was like, why do I keep getting lost here? Let me just pull over and stop for a second. This is ridiculous. I should know where I'm going. Why am I getting lost? And as soon as I put the car in park and shut the radio off, I heard the voice of my uncle saying, "Ann, I'm going to be coming for your mom soon, but don't worry, she'll be okay." And in some kind of words like that. And I was kind of like, "Oh wow, okay." P.S. My uncle had already passed away a few years ahead of time, so this was, that's the kicker there. I was hearing a voice from the past talking to me in the present, and I called a friend, as you might when you do these things, to call the friend.
On a friend.
What I just heard, and it's just like, oh, how the hell did you hear that? And it's like, oh, how do you feel about that? And
right.
Ironically, I kind of felt charged when I heard it. Right. Number one, it was unbelievably beautiful to hear his voice again. And he was my uncle, right? I had many uncles. That was, that was the closest one I had grown up. And we were always so close. And to have him say that he was taking care of my mom at that point, that made me feel good. And then I was also that I had the heads up that something might happen. And what was really wild is 3 weeks later, I was visiting my mom with my kids, and I was leaving, and I was like, oh, we're backing out of her driveway, and I look up and I see her standing on her porch as we're leaving. And I literally put the car in park. I jumped back out and I gave her a big hug. I went back upstairs, didn't hug my dad again, just hugged my mom again, because I just said, wow, I remember hearing that from Uncle Joe. And
she had not been sick or anything. This was just
she was fine. She was fine.
Right. Yep.
So I just went up and I gave her a big hug and I said, I love you, Mom, and took a big sniff. Right. I mean, I think that's one thing that that's probably, for me, that was one of the things that I missed the most about my mom was her smell. And so I think it was maybe 4 days later that I was trying to call her up to ask her how to cook a recipe. And my father was fumbling answering the phone. And it turned out that my mother, while cooking, her shirt caught on fire, and there was a massive amount of burns. And 5 weeks later, her life, she passed on. So that was one of those stories where, that's that whole thing right there. I know that I just dumped a lot on everyone, but on the other hand, that I had the consciousness and the awareness to not get all caught up in the news. I call that chapter the news.
That's right. Yep.
And it is so important to take that breath when you hear the news, because there's decision points there, right? So right. I could have freaked out and started sobbing right away. But the fact of the matter is my mother was not lost at that point. So investing all of my energy into I'm going to lose my mom thing would have stopped all the energy of, I love my mom so much and I enjoy being with her every moment I have. Mm-hmm. And so that's the perfect example of presence and taking a breath. With my dad, there were many of those steps along the way. Even not realizing the last time that you're going to hear their voice, right? And what was the last thing they said? And for him, it was just because of pain medication. He was alive for another 2 weeks, but wasn't able to really kind of communicate. But with that, being there with him in hospice, and again saying, I could sit here and say, again, this sucks. I'm so sad that I'm losing my dad. Or I can say like, oh my gosh, he's here another day. Like they kept calling my dad Marathon Man after the third day. They couldn't believe that he was because they understood that I now also was a pretty interesting person and I wasn't getting offended by what they said. And then we started having interesting dialogues because they had a different perspective. And I was like, if they can go through this and watch someone pass away every day on their life, and even though they're not close to them, I'm certain that it touches their heart. So is there something for me in this? And it is the profound respect and love of life in every moment that you have. And so through that time, I even watched when he was uncomfortable, and I actually used guided meditation because I knew he could hear me to calm him down. And at that point, the staff was kind of looking at me like, what you doing? And so if they saw me
and this is years ago, before it's now very prevalent.
10 years ago.
Right. People really weren't doing this.
Well, we're following you now because we don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, that's great,
Right.
But then, even after he left, I had the beautiful experience of sitting with my Uncle Bob, who's still with me. He reminds me so much of my dad. It's great to have him.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it is. He looks just like my dad. So it's really, but he's been a friend of mine for a long time. I mean, known him for how many years? But he was helping me plan the ceremony a bit for my dad. And I was going to throw something out. It was trash day. And I said, let me put it out tonight, so it's out there tomorrow. I won't have to get up early. And as I went to walk out the door, I turned on the porch light, and the porch light just shut off. And I immediately thought, damn, what a poor time for the light bulb to go out. But it wasn't that. Because I said that out loud, and then all of a sudden the light turned back on, and I just said, look at that. And again, I was caught up in the first thought, which was, damn, the light bulb is out. And I don't know where there's light bulbs, and I don't know how to change it, but I'll figure it out, kind of a thing. But then it was just like, oh my goodness, I sense a message. And the coolest thing was I just said, Dad, is that you? And it flashed. Yeah. And so there was this ability to be able to, yes, my father had just, left his physical body a few days before, but here he was, alive and well, and teasing me. Right?
His spirit can come through electricity very easily. Yeah.
And so then I call him out. I'm like, you won't believe this. I said, check this out, Bob. Dad's here. and it was funny. I said, well, I've been talking to him so much for 2 weeks. He's probably thinking, he's tired of me by now. But I said, I'm so glad you're here. I said, I'm going to run this trash out. You two can talk. And when I'm running back and forth, I can watch the light flashing, and I see my uncle pacing back and forth in the kitchen. And so it was a conscious dialogue. Audio, from the ear side, you probably only thought it was one-sided, but it was very clear that it was a two-sided conversation. And I took him to a place where I had a picture that I loved of my dad together. There was just so much of that. And, my dad was 89 when he passed away. I had had him all my life. We got so much closer after my mother passed away. It wasn't an easy loss, but it was like, you can look at everything from a different perspective if you just stop for a minute and take those breaths. So again, take a breath, take a drink.
Take a breath. Oh, I love it. And again, this book, and you're full of stories and nuggets and wisdom and wisdom and wisdom. Is your book still available for purchase, or is it readying for the whole package that you're piecing together?
The book is ready now. So I'm going to just go ahead and
do the plug. I love it. And
I have to, right?
You do. And the cover is stunning, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful book.
Right. And, I must say, when I titled this book, I got a little bit of pushback from the publisher. They said, who is going to want to read a book on death that's called To Die For? And I said, well, I'm originally from the New York City area. And so when you say to die for,
right, like to die
for the shoes, to die for the show, right. So for me, that's again telling you that there's gifts in this whole thing. And this cover came to me very clearly from when we were at a Joe Dispenza workshop, and it was beautiful for me to do that. And so the book is available. It is available on Amazon, so you can go on there. Currently, in building up to this, I have the audiobook is underway, so it'll soon be on Kindle as well. So that'll be great, so that you can have an audio version for those who don't like the hard copy. There's a website, todieforbook.com. And there's a lot of good information on there and stories, and you can always reach out on the email there. There's a Facebook page, To Die For Again. And that's that's probably the easiest way to reach out to me right now. But as we move into to courses and other things, there's much more to come. And the next one is going to be how to heal your heart from grief. So that's what's coming next, along with the courses.
Oh, Anne O'Boyle Vlahos. I just love you so much. And we have a mutual joke about when we get together and we're bumping broomsticks,
yes, we are.
bumping broomsticks. But I think I appreciate your time. I love that it's your dad's anniversary.
Right.
the gift of his presence, amazingly. Yes, it was my brother Christopher's birthday yesterday. And who, for those of you he passed away a number of years ago. So these little touch points that you can make a little acknowledgement without dwelling, if you will. So yeah, people are always in our hearts, as they say here in Boston, in your hat. And this has been a really magical moment. And it goes back to that moment of calm. And again, you are very, very good. We're going to wrap up now for time, but we haven't even talked about the corporate calm, and we will table that for another time, because that's part of your magic in your wheelhouse, as well as bringing that steadfastness within the swirl of industry. So just know, everybody, that this is a one-woman show who has enormous resources, a beautiful, beautiful family, now an amazing little grandbaby. And we really will have so much more to talk about at another time. But thank you for being here. And what else would you like to say? Do you have one more little nugget before we sign off?
Yeah. So first, I just want to thank you. It's been great to just reconnect and talk. And I think that there's a lot of value to what you're doing, just bringing information to people in a conversational way, right? It's a really easy way to start to enter into exploring yourself and the calmness and peace that you find.
Thank you. And I appreciate it. It's fun, and it's a beautiful thing. And I love that we just don't talk at people. We're talking with each other, with each other, for each other. And with that, thank you, Anne. And thank you all for listening. Please be sure to like, follow, review, and share this podcast. And if you would like to be part of the conversation, send emails to podcasts@lastingconversations.com, and find us on Facebook at Lasting Conversations. This is Lasting Conversations. We get to the heart of everything.